The day can feel loud before it even begins a headline, a message bubble, a delay that knocks your plans off balance. Your chest tightens. Your mind sprints ahead to everything that could go wrong. Maybe it's the flash of anger when someone cuts you off. Maybe it's dread that keeps you circling the same doorway instead of stepping in. You've known that inner weather, thick, low clouds of worry thoughts piling on thoughts until the light feels far away. You ask quietly, "How do I get out of this?" Stoicism doesn't promise to erase emotion. It teaches you to hold the wheel of your attention so feeling doesn't swallow you whole. Peace here isn't numbness. It's competence, knowing how to meet what shows up without giving it the keys to your day. The path isn't effortless, but it is practical, lived, trainable. If you stay with me fully present, no skipping, you'll hear ideas that have held up in crowded markets and quiet rooms alike. Take one breath. Plant one foot. We begin. You wake up before the sun, the room dim and quiet, and the first thing that greets you is not peace, but a list of unfinished tasks, messages, waiting, unresolved conflicts. Even before you rise from the sheets, your mind begins pressing its keys, and the song it plays is familiar tension, regret, a restless scan for what's missing. It is as if your thoughts are a piano left in the hands of a careless player, striking the wrong notes again and again. The instrument is not broken. It is your relationship with it that is untrained. This is the trap most of us live in, mistaking the mind for a master when it was always meant to be your servant. You give it no guidance, no intention, and so it wanders, constructing stories of failure, rehearsing mistakes you haven't even made, dragging you down roads that do not exist. A single phrase, "I'm behind, I'm not enough, I'll never get there," repeats like a hammer. And yet, at the very same moment, hidden just beneath this noise, another possibility waits harmony. The Stoics remind you that joy is not something distant or buried outside your reach. It is not locked in future achievement, external approval, or recognition from others. Joy is here generated in the chamber of your own thoughts. The mind can manufacture despair, yes, but it can also generate light gratitude, calm. When you recognize this power, you stop looking outward for permission to feel alive and turn instead to the keys already beneath your fingers. Consider this: on another morning, nothing in your circumstances changes. The list is just as long, the inbox just as full. But instead of asking, "What's unfinished?" you pause. You take one deliberate breath, and you whisper to yourself, "I'm alive. I've been given a new day." Notice the shift, not in the world, but in your body, in the air of the room, in the way your chest opens. Energy stirs, a small flame catches. Suddenly, the morning is not a burden, but an invitation. The act was not grand, but the result is undeniable. A different story began to play, and your system followed. The Stoic philosopher Seneca wrote, "True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future." But how often do you live anywhere except the present? Your thoughts leap backward, replaying mistakes, or race forward, constructing outcomes you cannot guarantee. In both cases, you abandon the only ground you truly stand on this moment. The present is not flashy. It is not dramatic. Yet it is steady, reliable, and always available. Your suffering begins the moment you trade it for what is gone or what is not yet real. Think back to a time with your family or a meal with someone you love. Were you fully there? Or did you drift, half listening, eyes on the clock, mind half occupied with what comes next? The memory is now tinged with loss, not because the moment lacked joy, but because you weren't able to enter it. The treasure was offered, and you overlooked it. And yet imagine if in that moment You had taken one conscious breath, set aside the future for even 10 seconds, and looked directly into the eyes across from you. You would have seen it, the joy already present, waiting to be noticed. This is why Stoicism insists on discipline of thought. Left alone, the mind will circle the same painful grooves. But trained even lightly, even for a few seconds, it can shift from turbulence to calm. You don't silence every negative thought. You starve them by feeding attention elsewhere. When you stop pouring energy into narratives of lack, joy surfaces like a spring long covered by debris. Here is a simple practice. The next time your mind begins to cloud, stress, irritation, fatigue, pause and ask yourself, am I pressing the wrong key? Then deliberately choose another. Think of one thing you are grateful for. Call up one memory that warms you, one person who has shown you kindness, one hope you still carry. Notice how the atmosphere shifts. The outer world remains the same, but the inner one begins to clear. You've proven it to yourself, the mind is not fixed. It is pliable. And when guided, it becomes a sanctuary rather than a prison. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself and your way of thinking." He was not writing from comfort. He was emperor in a world marked by war plague and betrayal. Yet he understood this external chaos cannot steal your power unless you hand it over. Joy is not found in the empire, but in the ruler's own discipline of thought. You too rule an empire, your inner one. It is not perfect order you seek, but rightful governance. So when late afternoon comes and fatigue creeps in, when the list feels endless and the pressure mounts, remember this: you are not helpless. You can breathe, redirect, and recall that beneath the storm, peace is always waiting. The mind is an instrument. Learn to play it. You've felt it before, the sudden flare when someone's careless word cuts too deep, when a small delay on the road makes your pulse spike, when a disappointment replays until it bruises you twice. The anger feels justified in the moment, hot, sharp, alive. But afterward, when silence returns, you see what it left behind: tension in your shoulders, regret in your chest, words you can't call back. The fire did not solve the problem. It burned you as much as the world. The Stoics knew this cycle well. They understood that suffering doesn't begin in the event itself, but in the judgment you attach to it. A remark is just a sound. Traffic is just a cluster of cars. A delay is only time passing. None of these carry the power to wound until you assign meaning. They disrespected me. This shouldn't be happening. I can't stand this. The pain grows not from reality, but from the story you write about it. Marcus Aurelius put it clearly. If you are troubled by something external, the pain doesn't come from the thing itself, but from your judgment of it. And this you can erase at any moment. Notice that last phrase: you can erase it at any moment. That is not a metaphor. It is a literal choice, one you can practice right now. Think of your mind as a strong, restless horse. Without reins, it bolts toward every sudden sound, dragging you into panic, anger, or despair. But give it reins, breath, pause, attention, and it becomes power-harnessed strength at your service. Directing the mind does not mean silencing every impulse. It means riding with clarity, refusing to be thrown at every stumble of the path. How do you reclaim those reins? Begin not with aggression, but with gentleness. The next time anger heats your chest, resist the urge to lash out. Stop. Take one slow breath in, then let it out longer than you drew it in. This simple act creates space, an interval between trigger and response. In that space lies your power. It may last only a heartbeat, but it is enough. In that heartbeat, you can ask yourself 3 questions. 1. Where is this feeling really coming from? 2. Is this worth my peace? What would happen if I simply didn't respond with anger? Already the storm begins to thin. The event is unchanged, but your posture toward it is transformed. Consider the image of sailing. The sea will always produce waves. You cannot demand calm waters every day, but you can learn to hold the sail, to move with the currents, to keep balance when the gusts arrive. Directing the mind is this: not stopping the waves, but steering your vessel with skill. Or picture driving on a crowded highway. You can't control the reckless drivers weaving around you, but you can slow down, stay alert, and keep your hands steady on the wheel. Your safety depends not on every other car, but on your ability to steer yours well. Your thoughts are no different. Negativity will appear sudden and sharp, but you decide how much space to give it, how far to follow it. Training the mind is not a one-time revelation. It is steady practice. Just as muscles grow through daily effort, clarity grows through repetition. You don't lift a weight once and call yourself strong. You don't pause once and call yourself unshakable. But each time you stop before reacting, each time you breathe instead of exploding, you strengthen a new pathway. Over time, the pause becomes natural. The calmer story easier to write. There will be days when the smallest spark feels like a wrecking ball. A careless email, a delay in traffic, a word spoken without thought. On those days, you will be tempted to let the horse run wild, to hand the wheel to your emotion. But remember this: your judgment writes the story, and stories can be rewritten. The Stoic philosopher Seneca warned anger, if left unchecked, often does more harm than the injury that provoked it. Look closely. Is the price of anger ever worth what it buys? Does your rage repair, or does it deepen the cut? If you can see this clearly, you'll hesitate before trading your long-term calm for a moment's fire. Try this when anxiety begins to spiral. Place your hand on your chest, close your eyes and whisper, "This will pass. I can respond, not react." Feel the words echo in your body. This is not denial. It is reorientation. You're reminding yourself that emotions are currents, not chains. Directing the mind does not eliminate anger, fear, or stress. Those emotions will always appear, just as waves will always strike the shore. What changes is the role they play. Without guidance, they hold the reins. With discipline, you do. You become the calm in the storm, not because storms vanish, but because you learned to steer. So ask yourself honestly in this moment, are you steering your thoughts, or are they steering you? If you are being dragged, pause, breathe, reclaim the reins. Even one small act of control begins to teach the mind its place. The more you practice, the more the wild horse learns to move with you, not against you. Your peace does not depend on outside events. It depends on how you direct the stories inside. Master this, and you will find yourself stronger, steadier, and far harder to disturb. It begins with the smallest spark, a message that says, "We need to talk." Nothing more. No explanation. No detail. Your mind doesn't wait for clarity. It races ahead, building entire worlds in seconds. Did I do something wrong? Are they angry? Is this the end of something? Suddenly your heart quickens, your chest tightens, and the rest of the day becomes heavy. Yet pause for a moment. What has actually happened? Nothing but 4 words on a screen. The storm you feel is not in the world. It is in your imagination. This is how most suffering begins, not from reality itself, but from the stories your mind creates about what might be. Anxiety is rarely tied to the present. It feeds on what has not yet arrived. You picture yourself failing the presentation before you've even spoken. You rehearse a confrontation that never takes place. You expect judgment in eyes that were never even turned your way. Each image you conjure feels real, and your body reacts as if it were. Epictetus said men are not disturbed by things but by the views they take of them. And what views does your imagination most often offer worst-case scenarios? Horror films where everything collapses. You are both the director and the captive audience, forcing yourself to sit through screenings of failure, betrayal, and loss. But here's the irony: the disaster almost never comes. You've suffered 1,000 deaths in your mind, while reality dealt you only a handful. Think back how many fears from last year actually materialized. How many dark predictions turned out to be shadows without substance. The email you dreaded was just a neutral update. The conversation you rehearsed in panic ended in laughter. The exam you thought would crush you became a stepping stone. The pattern is clear: your imagination left unchecked is not an ally, but a saboteur. And yet this same imagination can serve you. If it is powerful enough to build prisons, it is powerful enough to build gardens. If it can project despair, it can also project hope. What if instead of imagining failure, you imagined calm? What if, when you saw yourself walking into the room, you pictured steady breath, clear words, warm reception? The outcome may not always match the vision, but your state shifts. The fear softens. The body relaxes. Courage grows. This is not naive optimism. It is training. Take a simple exercise, close your eyes, and recall a time you felt genuine joy sitting with friends, finishing a task you thought impossible, watching the sky shift colors at dusk. Notice the details, the warmth of the room, the sound of laughter, the sensation in your chest. Now, in this very moment, your body relives that calm. Nothing external changed, yet your internal weather brightened. You proved the principle: your imagination is not only a threat, it is a tool. But most people never seize that tool. Instead, they allow mental illusions to drive them. A partner texts urgently, and you spiral into fear of betrayal. A colleague pauses before speaking, and you imagine hidden criticism. A boss calls your name, and you see only judgment waiting. Hours of energy are drained by stories that were never real. Then, when the truth arrives, good news, a neutral comment, a simple request, you see. The damage was self-inflicted. Seneca captured it with precision. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. That sentence should echo in your mind the next time fear stirs. Because if reality is already hard enough, why choose to double the suffering with illusions? Why carry a burden that doesn't exist? Here's a practice: the next time dread appears, whisper to yourself, "This is a story. It hasn't happened. I can let it go." Say it slowly and feel the weight loosen. You don't have to banish imagination. Banishment only strengthens it. You simply decline to treat every projection as truth. You become the director who chooses which film plays. Ask yourself, if your mind is capable of creating such vivid nightmares, why not use the same gift to craft visions that steady you? Before a meeting, see yourself speaking calmly. Before a journey, imagine arriving safely. Before a conversation, picture connection instead of conflict. Over time, this practice rewires expectation, and your nervous system stops living in permanent emergency mode. This does not mean reality will never bring pain. It will. Life offers enough of that on its own. But Stoicism asks, must you suffer twice? Once in the world and 1,000 times in the mind? Or will you discipline your imagination so that it becomes a servant, not a tyrant? You cannot stop thoughts from appearing, just as you cannot stop clouds from forming in the sky. But you can refuse to build temples to them. You can let them pass. And as you practice this, you discover a freedom deeper than comfort. The freedom to remain steady even when your imagination tempts you toward collapse. So remember this the next time fear creeps in, most of what you dread will never arrive. Train your mind not to bow to every image it creates. Let imagination serve you, not sabotage you. And in doing so, you will find that reality, even when difficult, is rarely as heavy as the shadows your mind once projected. The morning begins gray. Clouds hang low, the air heavy with drizzle, and before you've even set your feet on the floor, you've already spoken the verdict. This day is ruined. Nothing catastrophic has happened. No tragedy has struck. Yet by naming the rain, a problem you've turned neutral water falling from the sky into an enemy. The weight you feel isn't from the storm outside. It's from the label you stamped onto it. This is how much power definitions carry. Emotions themselves are waves, electrical currents, surges of energy signals from the body. But the meaning you assign decides whether they lift you or crush you. Anxiety before a presentation, for instance, do you call it weakness proof you're not ready? Then it becomes paralyzing. But what if you called it something else? Energy, fuel, a reminder that this moment matters. Suddenly the shaking hands are not a curse, but evidence of aliveness. Same heartbeat, different story. Most of us never pause to question these labels. We simply inherit them. Fear is bad, stress is failure, frustration is shame. We become passengers in our own inner world, carried away by interpretations we never chose. The Stoics invite you to reclaim authorship. They remind you that every emotion begins with a thought, and every thought is only a passing wave. What matters is not to silence the waves, but to learn how to surf them. Consider the way you talk to yourself. You say, "I'm too nervous. I can't handle this." Immediately, the body collapses around the thought, as if obeying an unquestioned command. But change a single word. This nervousness means I care. This shows I'm engaged. And the body shifts. Shoulders straighten, breath steadies, focus sharpens. Nothing outside has changed. The rain still falls, the meeting still waits. But inside, the terrain has been transformed. Suppression, by contrast, backfires. Try not to think of a red apple. The mind instantly conjures it brighter than before. The same happens with emotion. Try to bury anger, and it grows teeth in the dark. Try to silence fear, and it echoes louder. Resistance intensifies the very thing you want to erase. The Stoic way is not to deny or destroy feelings, but to reframe and reinterpret them. Nervousness, evidence that you care. Frustration, a signal something deeply matters. Fear, a sign you're stepping beyond the familiar, stretching the edge of your growth. Seen this way, emotions cease to be threats. They become guides. Stress says, pay attention. Anxiety whispers, prepare better. Frustration insists your values are here. Instead of enemies, they are messengers. And once you learn their language, you no longer need to run from them. This is why Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That power begins with labels. If you label your emotions as curses, they will enslave you. If you label them as signals, they become tools. Think of a historical general on the eve of battle, nerves racing through his soldiers. He could tell them, "This fear means weakness," and watch them crumble. Or he could tell them, "This fear means you are alive, ready, awake." Same pounding hearts, different interpretation. Which story would you rather follow? Practice it in small ways. The next time you feel frustration rising in traffic, don't call it rage. Call it a reminder to slow down, to practice patience, to use the moment as training. When anxiety tenses your stomach before a meeting, don't call it panic. Call it focus, sharpening your edge. When sadness arrives, don't call it failure. Call it testimony that you loved something enough to grieve. These tiny acts of renaming reshape your world. And remember, nothing intensifies suffering like trying to kill it. Many people think peace means the absence of emotion, as if they must flatten themselves into stone. But peace is not silence, it is clarity. It is being able to say, this is anger, but it does not own me. This is fear, but it signals growth. This is stress, but it fuels effort. When you can speak this way, emotions lose their claws. Try this now. Think of one strong emotion you've been resisting. Name it. Locate where it lives in your body, your chest, your throat, your jaw. Then translate it. What is this emotion pointing to? In that translation, the weight lightens. You have turned the label from curse to compass. You cannot stop the waves. They will keep arriving, rising, falling, crashing. But you can choose how you ride them. To fight them is to drown. To rename them is to surf. This is the Stoic way, not escape, but clarity. Not suppression, but reinterpretation. So the next time you wake under gray skies, pause before declaring the day ruined. The rain is not against you. It is water. Let the story you tell about it serve you, not sabotage you. For in the end, emotions are not chains, but guides. And your freedom lies not in silencing them, but in defining them wisely. Your mind is the most powerful tool you will ever carry, yet it is often the least understood. You can feel it when it's working against you, the looping thoughts that replay the same scene over and over, the sudden surge of anxiety without a clear cause. The restless worry that fills your chest long after the world around you has calmed. It feels mysterious, untamable, even hostile. But the Stoics remind you what feels like chaos is often only misunderstanding. You have power over your mind, Marcus Aurelius wrote, not over outside events. Realize this, and strength follows. Picture your mind as a garden. If you leave it untended, weeds sprout fast, criticism, regret, self-doubt. They don't require effort to grow. They flourish in neglect. But if you cultivate deliberately planting gratitude, reflection, clarity, then over time the soil changes. The weeds still appear, but they no longer dominate. This is the paradox: the mind always produces growth. The question is, what are you feeding, or picture it as a high-performance vehicle? The engine is strong, capable of incredible speed, but without a driver it veers, crashes, burns fuel on nothing. That is what happens when your thoughts are left on autopilot. They spiral into catastrophes, into endless what-ifs, into imaginary failures. But with hands on the wheel, with awareness, you can guide that same speed toward clarity, toward resilience, toward progress. The problem was never the car. It was the lack of direction. There's another paradox here: the harder you try to eliminate thoughts, the louder they become. Try not to imagine a purple tiger, and instantly the animal prowls into your mind. Try not to think of failure, and suddenly the word echoes in every corner. This is why resisting your thoughts rarely works. Suppression intensifies. The Stoic path offers something else, not destruction of thoughts, but understanding. Instead of shouting, "Go away," you ask, "What are you trying to tell me?" Fear may be a signal to prepare more carefully. Anxiety might be a reminder to slow down. Frustration could point to something deeply important to you. Emotions are not problems to erase, but feedback to study. And feedback, when welcomed, becomes growth. Think of a moment before a high-stakes event, a job interview, a test, a crucial conversation. Your mind whispers, "What if I fail? What if I look foolish?" Left unchecked, those whispers become storms. But if you pause and reframe, the entire landscape shifts. This is a chance to learn. Mistakes don't define me. Effort does. Suddenly, the same surge of adrenaline feels less like collapse and more like energy you can use. Nothing outside changed. Only your internal script shifted, and with it, your body's response. Science echoes what Stoicism taught long ago: the brain builds pathways based on repetition. Tell yourself, "I'm not enough often enough," and the road deepens, paved and permanent. But start repeating, "I'm improving, I've come far," and slowly another road takes shape. The old one may remain, but it weakens through disuse. The new one strengthens with practice. This isn't just poetry. It's wiring. And wiring, though stubborn, is not fixed. So how do you shift the mechanics of the mind? Begin with questions. Each time an emotion seizes you, pause and ask, where did this come from? Is it really as big as it feels? Is it worth trading away my peace for? These questions create distance. They let you step back from the swirl and see the thought for what it is, a weather pattern passing through the sky of your mind. You are not the storm. You are the sky, vast, open, unaffected at its core. This practice doesn't promise you will never feel anxious again. You will. But the difference is in relationship. Before you were the captive, now you are the observer. Thoughts arrive, but they no longer dictate your every move. Emotions surge, but they no longer seize the reins. You watch, you understand, you guide. And when you live this way, something remarkable happens. The mind you once feared becomes an ally. Instead of dragging you into turbulence, it begins to offer clarity. Instead of spiraling into dread, it produces resilience. Instead of echoing failure, it whispers strength. So tonight, when you reflect on your day, ask, what thoughts shaped me today? Did they move me closer to calm or to chaos? Did I feed weeds or did I tend the garden? The answers will not condemn you, they will instruct you. And tomorrow you can choose differently. Remember, the most transformative act is not to fight your mind, but to understand it. It is not your enemy. It is your greatest tool waiting for discipline. Learn its mechanics, and it will carry you not into storms, but through them. There's a moment you know too well. You're in the middle of a meeting or standing in a conversation, and suddenly a thought pierces through. What if I say the wrong thing? What if they see me as clueless? The body responds instantly. Your chest tightens, your breath shortens, your voice trembles. But pause and ask what actually happened. Nothing. The thought arrived, and you mistook it for truth. This is the trap, believing you are your thoughts. When anxiety comes, you declare, "I am anxious." When anger rises, you say, "I am furious." When sadness lingers, you whisper, "I am broken." But what if none of these labels were true? What if emotions are not identities, but weather, passing, shifting, never permanent? To believe otherwise is to confuse the storm with the sky. The Stoics taught the art of distance, the ability to witness thoughts without being swallowed by them. Imagine standing too close to a painting. All you see are chaotic brushstrokes, fragments without sense. But take 3 steps back, and suddenly an image appears. The same strokes are there, but the perspective transforms them. In the same way, when you step back from your thoughts, you see what they really are: passing impressions, not ultimate truths. One way to build this distance is through naming. When a wave of anxiety crashes, instead of drowning in it, you quietly say, "This is anxiety." When frustration claws at you, you say, "This is frustration." When fear tightens your throat, you say, "This is fear." By naming, you create a boundary. The feeling becomes an object you observe, not a prison you inhabit. Science confirms what Stoicism intuited: labeling emotions lowers their intensity, restores clarity, and gives you space to choose. Think of the mind as a river. Thoughts are currents rushing by, some shallow, some deep, some dark. Without awareness, you dive in, tossed wherever the water carries you. But when you step onto the bank, you realize you can watch the current without being dragged by it. The river still flows, but you remain steady. That is detachment, not indifference, but clarity. The next time a thought grips you, try this: breathe in, breathe out, and remind yourself, I am the observer, not the storm. Even one breath can widen the gap. In that gap, you recover choice. The Stoics often measured distance through time. They asked, will this matter a week from now, a month, a year? By stretching perspective, they shrank the weight of the present spike. What feels unbearable now often dissolves when placed against the scale of years. Add a second question. Is this something I can control? If yes, act. If no, let it go. Trying to bend what lies outside your reach only multiplies pain. Consider a modern moment: you're stuck in traffic, late to a meeting, frustration mounting. You grip the wheel, jaw tight, thoughts racing. Step back. What is happening? You are in a car on a road surrounded by others in the same condition. That's all. The rest, the anger, the story of being disrespected, the panic about being judged, those are layers added by the mind. Peel them away, and the reality is far simpler. You cannot clear the road, but you can breathe, accept the delay, maybe even use the time to reflect. The traffic remains, but the suffering lessens. Or take an ancient scene: a soldier on the eve of battle, heart-pounding, imagination running wild. He thinks, I will die tomorrow. But his mentor reminds him, that is not knowledge, only a thought. Do not fight it, but see it for what it is, a guess, a cloud passing. Breathe. Step back. Act with clarity. That practice allowed him to stand steady, not because the danger disappeared, but because he refused to be devoured by his own mind before the battle even began. Mindfulness is another form of distance, not abstract meditation, but simple presence. When a thought storms in, anchor yourself to the body, the rise and fall of your breath, the weight of your feet on the ground, the sensation of air on your skin. These reminders tether you to the present, while the thought drifts like a cloud above. You don't silence it. You simply stop obeying it. Repeat this truth until it becomes second nature. You are not your thoughts. You are the witness of them. They can rage, plead, or whisper, but you decide which ones deserve energy. Most will pass if left unfed. Affirm it now quietly with conviction: I am not my thoughts. Let that sentence settle in your chest. Feel how it shifts your relationship with whatever storm lingers there. Because in the end, mastery isn't about eliminating storms. It's about remembering you are the anchor, the one who stands while the winds howl. Life will not grow easier. Waves will keep rising, thoughts will keep arriving. But you will grow steadier. You will learn to stand on the bank, to step back from the canvas, to become sky rather than storm. And in that distance lies freedom, the freedom to live not as a captive of the mind, but as its master. You've stepped back from your thoughts, seen them for what they are, clouds, not the sky. But insight alone is fragile, if not reinforced. A single pause, a single reframe feels powerful in the moment, yet fades by tomorrow if you never repeat it. Just as the body withers without movement, the mind weakens without training. This final lesson is about discipline, daily practice, not occasional revelation. So many people crave the shortcut. They read one book copy, down a single quote, feel a spark of clarity, and assume they've been transformed forever. But as Epictetus reminded, no great thing is created suddenly. Muscles aren't built from one workout. Roots don't anchor from one drop of rain. The mind doesn't grow steady from one moment of insight. True strength is cultivated slowly through repetition, through deliberate training. Think of emotions like a beach ball held underwater. You can suppress them with force, hold them down for a time. But the instant you relax, they shoot upward stronger than before. Suppression without discipline is like that temporary, exhausting, and doomed to rebound. The Stoics didn't run from anger or fear. They trained with them so that when the waves rose, they weren't surprised or overwhelmed. Consider the exercise of premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. You take a moment before a challenge to imagine the worst that could happen. Failure, embarrassment, loss. At first this sounds dark, but notice what it does. It shrinks fear's shadow. By picturing the worst clearly, you often see it as survivable. Even if you stumble, even if the outcome isn't perfect, life continues. Courage grows because you've faced the image already. The unknown becomes known, and its grip weakens. Picture yourself preparing for a high-stakes presentation. The familiar doubts creep in. What if I stumble? What if I look unprepared? Instead of resisting, you practice. Even if I stumble, I'll learn. Even if I falter, I'll recover. Even if I fail, I will still breathe, still grow. Notice how the fear loosens. It no longer feels like life or death. The scenario remains challenging, but your courage has expanded to meet it. Discipline also means reflection. At night, sit down with paper and pen. Write what stirred you that day: anxiety, anger, dread. Ask, what triggered this? What story did I tell myself? What could I have done differently? This nightly act is not about shame, but about clarity. Slowly, patterns emerge. You see which thoughts mislead you, which situations ignite you, which stories drain you. Awareness grows, and with it, choice. Do not underestimate these small acts. Training the mind is like brushing your teeth. You don't say, I brushed yesterday, so I'm done forever. You repeat because hygiene is maintenance, not achievement. The same is true of thought. Daily training keeps the weeds from overrunning the garden, the engine from stalling, the horse from bolting. And here is the truth most people miss: there is no finish line. You will never reach a day when nothing disturbs you. Life will continue to bring storms, accidents, betrayals, losses. But training ensures that though things may bother you, nothing will control you. You move from being at the mercy of every gust to being the sailor who knows how to ride the winds. Progress is not perfection. It is practice. One calm decision at a time. One thoughtful pause instead of an outburst. One evening reflection instead of blind repetition. Over weeks, then months, you notice you recover faster. You carry less weight. You meet storms with steadier breath. Your mind, once an adversary, becomes an ally. Imagine again the soldier rising each dawn. He doesn't train once and declare himself ready forever. He drills daily, sharpens discipline, polishes armor. Not because he hopes the battle won't come, but because he knows it will. In the same way, your training is not to avoid difficulty, but to be ready when it arrives. So start where you are. 5 minutes each day. A pause in traffic. A written line in a journal. A moment of premeditatio before an uncertain step. Small actions steady as heartbeat. Over time, they weave into a habit, and the habit becomes a way of being. Remember, this overcoming negativity doesn't mean erasing it. It means learning to face it without collapsing, to feel without being consumed, to create space between reaction and response. It means becoming a lifelong student of yourself. These 7 lessons: recognizing your mind's power to generate joy, learning to direct it, refusing imagination's traps, redefining emotions, understanding the mind's mechanics, stepping back from thoughts and training daily, are not theories. They are practices. And the power lies not in hearing them once, but in weaving them into the fabric of each day. So tonight, as you rest, remind yourself strength is built in repetition. Tomorrow will bring new thoughts, new feelings, new storms. But you will bring a trained mind, one that does not surrender easily, one that grows steadier with every practice. That is Stoic mastery, not perfection, but persistence. And with each repetition, you'll discover the truth Marcus Aurelius carried through war and plague alike. Very little is needed to live a good life, only the discipline of your own thoughts. Train them daily, and your inner world will become unshakable no matter what storms rise outside.